Nope, that's absolutely true. It was not meant as an insult. I'm just saying when I was in my 20s, you would see a sailor, yeah, maybe an occasional Marine, and yeah, that was about it with tattoos. Women, absolutely not. You just didn't see it. And now, granted, it's moved considerably upscale. Like, heck, I just read a couple of years ago the Crown Prince of Denmark has two of them, and you can't get much more upscale than him. So, but it's just, it's absolutely, it's the times they have changed.
Yeah, times have. I don't think the word change. It's the right word. Like times has times had gotten fucked.
Mhm.
That would be more politically correct.
I have to say, not that this is any relation to arm wrestling, but I just learned something today about Puerto Rico that apparently you're the only people in the United States that do not pay capital gains taxes. That
Yeah.
which I do taxes during tax season, and they were talking about I was reading an article about how people are moving to the south and to the west, and they were saying that they wouldn't be surprised if some of the super rich started officially taking up
Yeah,
residence
because
in Puerto
we
Rico.
I think it was in, when was it? 2008. I think it was in 2010 when Governor Portuño was in office. He made a law so that rich people, rich American people,
Right.
like from the mainland, can
Right.
move to Puerto Rico and not pay taxes.
Mm-hmm. Well, they pay some
It was
taxes, but they
supposed
don't
to
pay
be
capital
like
gains.
to stimulate the economy,
Right.
and they would like spend more in Puerto Rico, which they don't.
They don't.
But
No.
you know,
Mhm.
That's a sad truth
Yeah.
that they do not. So
so
it is what it
let
is.
me do the intro. Let me do the intro.
Okay.
Please.
Welcome everybody to PulseoTV's podcast, Probando Fuerza. Right now, we're sharing the screen with the people from New York, 98% guys, which I love them dearly because they gave me the shirt. I got the shirt. Finally, I got the shirt like 2 weeks ago. And we're here to talk about all sorts of things relating arm wrestling, Winter Blast event. We're going to talk about beefing with the people that had some comments about the Winter Blast. And we're going to talk about tomorrow. All the matches that's going to be on tomorrow. So welcome, Dan and Dave. You can say hi. You want to introduce yourselves?
Well, hello, except I'm from Pennsylvania. I don't claim to be from New York. He can be claimed from New York.
Oh, yeah. I'm sorry about that.
No, that's perfectly all right. But we're weird enough in Pennsylvania as it is without, being New York.
Last weekend I had Adam on. He's from Pennsylvania too. Adam Wasinski.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. No, I've been pulling for about a little under 5 years, and one of the folks that helps Ryan Grondin run the 98% group, and generally having a reasonably good time of it. Not nearly as successful at actually winning occasionally as Dan is, but I'm having fun anyway.
And
Nice.
I'm Dan, the Nightmare Schwartz. I got my moniker from from another arm wrestler who's a little new in the scene. His name's Chris Lacco, but he's known for being quite the animated arm wrestler, and he likes to dish out some good nicknames to people who he seems deems worthy of them. But I've been arm wrestling for about a year and a half now. I just recently, I'd say about 6 months, 7 months ago, I jumped into the pro division. I am from New York, even though 98% is mostly centric in PA, Philadelphia market, Allentown area. They branched out tremendously and attracted people from all over, up to including people from Long Island. And I was able to actually connect with PulseoTV and Manolo by social media because Instagram, because I am also half Puerto Rican, and getting in touch with him to learn a little more about arm wrestling roots in Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I was about to mention that you were half Puerto Rican.
Yeah, absolutely, man. I have a lot of pride with that. That comes along with that. Puerto Rico has quite the history, and I mean, I've only scratched the surface of learning the history myself. But it's definitely undergoing some serious trials and tribulations with itself as an island, as a a tropical place, as well as an arm wrestling community. From a previous podcast that we had with you on it, we learned all about that and how it kind of disappeared, almost fizzled out. But you kept it aflame, and kept it alive, and that's exactly what the type of mentality that 98% really does want to attract. It's that the people who aren't making it the high levels.
I might add that so many of the Puerto Ricans can't stand New York that they're moving to Pennsylvania. That actually Allentown, Pennsylvania, where I live, which
Not
is
too far behind, man.
about 130,000. We actually have a majority of the population of Allentown speak Spanish in the home, which is, at one time we were, the Pennsylvania Dutchmen, but Allentown, Reading, Lancaster, a lot of the places, you think of Lancaster as being Amish, are very heavily Latino now.
Okay. I wanted you guys to tell the story about how this 98% movement started. Who started it and what does it mean? Like Dan just spoke a little bit about that, but I wanted to hear the whole story.
Yeah, sure. So pretty much think of it, we think of it this way. 2% of arm wrestling community are the top elite pullers. You got the Devin Luretts, the Monster Michael Todds, John Brzenks, right? They are the majority, though, are the other 98% of us. And we never had an organization in the arm wrestling community to really highlight that and really shine a light on the community of guys that don't necessarily get a chance to be in that limelight. So we are all about that. We're all about the journey of an arm wrestler. If they just spend 5 minutes on the table to 5 years on the table, it doesn't matter where. We are treating them equally across the platform. And I wasn't part of the original founding of arm wrestling, the 98% arm wrestling community. That was actually Ryan Grondin and a few other guys from Pennsylvania that teamed up with Team New Jersey as well to kind of create this concept and get the ball rolling. And they really saw that this really needed to take place because they felt that only the small portion of athletes were getting the attention that everyone else deserved. And in doing so, one of the things that we do is at every tournament that we have, we get a free, we give away a free Arm Assassins table.
I love that, bro. I love that. I love
somebody who doesn't have the ability to provide for themselves. That they're definitely somebody who shows up to tournaments, but they may, whatever hardship they're enduring, whether it be financial, relationship wise, anything going on in their lives, if we feel that somebody in the community really could benefit from getting a table, we're going to go ahead and gift that to somebody who doesn't have that opportunity to do so for themselves. We also make competitor badges for each and every one of our competitors because we want them to feel important. Each and every individual that shows up to our tournaments should feel like a world-class athlete, not for nothing, because that's where it begins. That's where people get that taste, the taste of victory, the taste of becoming a part of something bigger than themselves. So we treat the amateurs and pros pretty essentially the same in that regard.
I think Dan has pretty well explained what we are and how we do it. I don't know that he goes back quite far enough that he can answer the other part of your question, which was how did the whole thing get started? Which actually, strangely enough, the whole thing got started with some idiotic rubber band, exercise band set of videos that Ryan Grondin made. These band at that time, everybody was using bands for some reason, and Ryan made these videos that showed where he had all sorts of bands wrapped around him, multiple bands, and at the very end, he goes flying off the stage as though it basically grabs him and pulls him away. Well, and he was also exercising, and some of the shall we say, some international pullers who don't quite have the same approach to humor, let's put it that way, as Americans. Were sending him these notes saying, "Oh, bro, you're doing this wrong. You're doing this wrong." But it was picked up by Devin Larrett and some other people, and it just went viral. And so that was the beginning of that. And then Ryan decided to start doing these podcasts, and the very first one was with me. I was the guinea pig, and he said to me, basically don't pay any attention to anything I'm doing. He was going to basically make a mockery of it to a degree. So he's asked me questions. I'm very seriously answering them. In the meantime, he's, sniffing white out, and he's eating a banana, and he's just generally acting like an idiot, and picking his nose, and whatever. And of course, people were saying, "Oh, hey, boy, that was very rude." And no, it was all very much planned. But one thing led to another, and as Dan suggested, that bled into this whole concept of, let's see if we can do start organizing tournaments for from a slightly different perspective. We ran 2 tournaments in 2020 in Philadelphia that we called protest tournaments. And the reason for it, of course, that was during COVID, and you weren't allowed to have a group larger than a certain number, except, as you may recall, if you had a protest, that was perfectly all right. Basically nobody could do anything except, when they were marching and protesting, whatever. So we basically kind of tongue-in-cheek called them our protest tournaments. We were protesting against bad refereeing and, this sort of thing. And had the protest 1 and protest 2 tournaments, which were very successful, and which were somewhat different in that we try to bring in somebody from what would be considered elite, or at least, close to elite, as the headliner. But then we have other people that will have challenge matches who are definitely very unelite, such as, for example, me, that, I had, 1-1 and lost the other, just, for the record, but at the very first protest tournament. So basically one thing led to another, and of course it's gotten larger and larger and larger. And our last tournament that we just had, the Winter Blast, we had 189 competitors. Actually, there's probably a few more than that, but the numbers were going with our 189 competitors and 336 entries. The reason I say it might have been a few more than that is
I heard. I don't know. I don't remember where, but I read or heard that there were 240.
No, we had 336 entries, that is whatever, but no, we didn't have 240 competitors. We had probably 190 some. We're going with 189, but I know there were several people, at least one pair, that did a super match that did not then compete in the brackets. So there may have been more than one, so that would add a few more. But no, the official numbers that we, as best we can determine, are 189 people and 336 entries, which is humongous.
I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I think I'm always paying attention of everything arm wrestling in the United States more than internationally, and I do believe that your organization, the 98%, it's the most organized and the most active, and like the last tournament, the Winter Blast was long, but it was organized, and it was entirely a success. I loved it. I watched it entirely. Even the break when the guy had the medical thing, I even stood through that. It was a great event, and I give you congratulations on that, because you're rising. You're you're keeping guys like me and the arm wrestling community in Puerto Rico that do not have that elite level, like, in the mix. Like, we feel like we can go, we can participate, we can be part of what you're doing. And I believe that's what every arm wrestler in the world wants.
Yeah, Ryan really has thrown himself into it. Really, Ryan is the linchpin of everything. There are others of us, myself, Dan, and among others, that work with him and, hold important roles and do important things for the group. But Ryan basically holds everything together and really puts a lot of time, a lot of effort, and quite frankly, a lot of money into it. I know after people saw the numbers for the Winter Blast, oh boy, you people really made a killing on that, which quite frankly, no, we didn't. Because of what we're talking about, what we do put back into it in the trophies and, the other expenses.
I mean, I've been close enough people running tournaments.
Yeah.
And I will say that your tournament was great, and it looks so fancy and it looks so professional, but I know that you guys didn't make money out of it, because I know you throw everything you get at it, so the competitors and the people have a good time and feel good. And that's what the sport is missing in some places in the world,
Yeah, I would say we didn't go into the red on it, but our best estimate is we made less than $600 on the whole thing, and of course it was poured right back into the next event.
Yeah, and I like you were saying, Dan?
in similar fashion to like the access that we have to the elite, like we do have access to speaking to them, right? But we don't have access to always be shoulder to shoulder with them, to be standing there in front of a camera next to them and being spotlit in that same fashion. So what you're speaking to is creating that hope for each and every arm wrestler. Hey, wait, I can actually, if I just show up to enough tournaments, I will get there. I can get there. I can get recognized. And as long as I'm progressing and just being consistent and maintaining that level of mentality that, okay, don't give up, don't get discouraged. Just because I got beat this one time doesn't mean the next time I may not get beat, and that's what we're trying to encourage with the style of tournaments that we're hosting. And
it makes us feel like we belong, like there's a place for us,
Absolutely.
Yeah. How many other sports do you know of where not only can you meet the elite and talk to them, very much one-to-one, but where someone such as myself, for example, can in effect be on the undercard with some very good people. Yeah, that it just isn't going to happen in most sports.
Yeah,
I've only I was only in the sport for a year at the time, and I was the undercard for Jordan Sill and Brandon Assessor. I mean, what other sport can you actually say unless like you are a true phenom to be on that same type of ticket?
Yeah, it's true. That's true. And the thing you do that you give away a table at every event, like that's like the biggest challenge for every arm wrestler in the world is how to get a hold of a table or an arm wrestling table, and I don't know if you have followed my social media and PulseoTV's podcast. The very first podcast I did was with the guys of the island of Antigua, because I wanted to bring together the arm wrestlers in the Caribbean and the Latin American nations, right? And these kids, there was like no arm wrestling ever in the island of Antigua, and they got to know arm wrestling from social media, such as yourselves, Dev and John Bersenk, and they started arm wrestling, and they built their own tables, like really like wooden tables, and it's because they can't afford to get a table, and for you to give a table away on every tournament, that's like, it may seem like a little thing, but I think it's the biggest thing you can do for the community, because not everybody has the access to a table.
And I'll tell you, if you look, you can, by doing a search, you can find the exact dimensions of a table, the official dimensions, and also in many cases just plans, or at least you can see how one can be put together, which we have people putting together, with wood. We have people putting together with basically the metal. The one I found was, I think, most interesting is there's a group in upstate New York that put their table together with plumbing fixtures, that they actually had piping. And so where you had the crossbar, the crossbar would have like
what kind of piping?
Like a maybe a 1-inch water pipe type thing, just like a piping, like a metal pipe, like you would have in
Plumbing.
In plumbing. It's just, and so where you would have a plumbing fixture that, whatever you call that, where he has like the 3 holes, the 2, and then 1 where it goes out the side, that would be for like the crossbar. They'd have that about halfway up the legs and then going across. And so really they put their table together, in that way.
Yeah, in Puerto Rico, we got lucky because I will say it over and over again, and maybe people are watching this and they say, there's go Manolo again telling this, but I'm going to say it. I always say it. Joe Cortez is the best arm wrestling in Puerto Rico, and we are lucky enough that he is a welder. And he builds the tables, and when he came into the sport, that's when everything started rolling, because everybody could get a table because they bought it from Joe, or Joe just gave it to them,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
Awesome.
Changing the subject, I wanted to talk about the Winter Blast event. I wanted to talk about everything that you went through to put it together. And even the drama at the end. I saw the comments by Team Bresnan and all that. I wanted to, to get to the bottom of it. If you can share the story.
Okay, well, that one I can do. As you perhaps are aware, we've had some friction. That's a nice word for it. Some friction between Paul Italia and some of our people, which the whole thing started with people made up some memes and Paul was offended. And so there was some, I hate to say bad blood, but certainly friction. And at one of Travis Bajan's tournaments in Virginia, Ryan was there and he basically had a sit down with Paul and said, hey, let's see if we can work this out. That they basically agreed that to in effect bury the hatchet, and so we thought things were cool. Then we discovered that there was a group of the arm wrestling on what do they call AWU, whatever they call themselves, Reloaded, that had a text back and forth where some of them were talking about how they wanted to basically try to screw up the Winter Blast by talking some of our main competitors into not showing. Unfortunately for them, one of the main competitors that we'd already signed up was on the text, and he shared the actual text with us. And so we got to see that. Now, this was, to be fair, this was not Paul Italia that did it. It was actually Matt Craig, but Matt Craig is very closely associated with Paul Italia. And so it was our reaction was, wait a minute, we thought we had straightened this all out. Everything was going to be hunky-dory. And now what are you trying to do? You're trying to talk some of our people. Some of the people are going to show up at our tournament, trying to screw our tournament is basically what it came down to. And so, that didn't work. But when people found out about this, including some that were coming to our tournaments, such as Artem, for example, thought, wait a minute, they're trying to wreck the tournament I'm going to. And there was a lot of people were like, what the hell is going on here? Well, as it happens, Tim Bresnan has known Sue Fisher for years, decades probably. Sue Fisher, as you may know, ran a very successful tournament called Winter Blast for some years. And Tim, basically, when Tim heard about this, he was just, shall we say, outraged that somebody was trying to wreck the tournament belonging to, or at least run in part. It was a combination, Sue Fisher's Winter Blast in '98, that somebody was trying to wreck a tournament run by a good friend of his. And he made some remarks, and the remarks were not well taken, and some remarks came back. And so that led into, shall we say...
I'm sorry, you don't mess with Tim. I'm sorry, you do not mess with Tim.
Yeah. And so it resulted in a verbal artillery barrage, which you read.
Yeah.
But that was basically...
Anyway, I'm laughing because when I saw, I said, Tim Bresnan is a guy that mostly keeps to himself.
Yeah.
And if he goes out on a limb and start making or saying these things, it's because they're true. He would not say stuff he is not sure are true.
Tim was outraged that someone that he had been a close friend with for years was somebody was trying to screw her over, and just let it be known that he was outraged.
So it wasn't like a direct situation with Paul Italia. It was someone related to Paul that tried to screw with the thing, or you think Paul was behind everything?
It's a classic case of where Peter pays for Paul type of deal, because of somebody was associated with another individual. Everyone gets lumped into the same group and category. So one person created a meme of Paul Italia, all of 98%, because that person was a part of 98%, was put under the looking glass saying, hey, 98% are just full of people are trolls and they just like to make memes of people. They're not true arm wrestlers, so don't support them. And then the other side of that, they were saying, well, let's sabotage their events so that way they won't be successful. And it just keeps going back and forth. It's a little unnecessary high school drama. I do think it's a bit of it is clickbait to kind of generate more interest and keep things flowing in between tournaments. Not my taste, not my cup of tea. I've kind of stepped away from that side of the drama, but it is entertaining nonetheless. It's to some degree.
Yeah, it was entertaining. And as a friend of mine, Nato, if you're watching, he told me once, there's no such thing as bad publicity. Publicity is publicity, And to me, it was funny because watching Tim Bresnan shit on people, it's hilarious. But who's gonna fuck with Tim,
Absolutely.
And I'm really sorry that this came to pass, that this happened. And if you have a brand and you have people associated with your brand, and they make mistakes or do stuff you're not involved in, but they relate you to, or they get you into it just because you are associated with them, you got to straighten things up, and you got to apologize for yourself and for the people that are associated with you. Because even though you didn't do nothing, like you said, Dan, if one guy of 98% does something, everybody else is gonna get dragged into it. Like that's why I'm like always alone and always doing my own stuff, because that's true. And people don't really understand that. And people, like, I don't get offended so easily. But if somebody I mean, I know people talk shit about me. I know, and I know who they are, but I don't give a shit. Like I said, publicity is publicity. And if they talking shit, it's because they watching me, and you like watching me, you know? And that's the whole thing with the Winter Blast. And at the end of the day, even if it was a little drama, I think it was a positive thing. And people would be like, oh, the Winter Blast is going to be on 2023 too. And people will be expecting it. And at the end of the day, it was a positive thing for you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was it's somewhat of an unfortunate situation whenever this sort of thing takes place. But certainly, I will say this: when Tim made his remarks, it was clear it was coming from Tim. You know,
Yeah.
I can accept that far more than, as you know, we have people in this sport that are trolls that hide behind fake names. And when they basically come out because they, quite frankly, don't have the cojones, if I may borrow a phrase, to basically to admit who they are under their own name, that's where I have problems. You know, at least if somebody has the, has the fortitude to say, yes, this is what I think, and say it under their own name, I can respect that.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. That's why I don't be saying or talking shit about people. I just go right to them, look them in the eyes, and say what I have to say.
Mm-hmm.
That's what men do. But apparently, men are changing or getting fucked.
Absolutely. with that being the case, so one of the things that we're working hard as a community, as an organization, to kind of really launch and structure our brand to a fashion where we will have better tournaments each and every tournament that comes our way. The next tournament that 98 presents is going to be even bigger and better than the last one. It's going to have everything that the last one had and probably more, because we're always building to improve for better experiences for all arm wrestlers, from novice to the elite that could show up as a whole, and the viewers as well. Anybody who's watching live, anybody who's watching on a recording, family members that come to spectate, we want everyone to have an elevated experience. And we have a little further announcement. I know Ryan actually announced it in our page. We are launching a 98% league soon. And we're going to be developing our own internal ranking system, and have pretty much a champion of the 98% that's going to essentially at one point transition to be the 2%er of arm wrestling. They're still going to be celebrated as a 98%er because that's where their origins began, because at one point or another we all were a 98%er, right? So that's kind of where, we're evolving constantly. We're trying to grow the brand and become a household concept within the arm wrestling community. And not for nothing, I hope that other sports and other avenues of the world kind of look at what we're doing and say, hey, wait, they're on to something here. Because we can really transition the entire world in a better mindset if they adopt what we're doing.
Yeah.
Ryan had a tagline, which he really doesn't use quite as often anymore on the podcast, where he would start the podcast saying, at one time, everybody was, is, or will be, including the future tense, a 98%er. That even if you're elite now, unless you are indestructible, like perhaps John Brzenk, eventually you're going to no longer be elite, and we'll be back into the 98%.
Yeah, but is there other category in the 98%? Because I know there's the 2%, there's the John Bisanks, the Devin Larratts, the Michael Platts, the HAPs, but there's some guys like let's say Brandon Excelsior. He's a great guy. He's a strong guy, and I bet not everybody can beat him. But he's not at the level of Devin. Is there another subdivision inside the 98%?
No, there really is not. But the way I would answer that is it's certainly a very fuzzy line between the two. I mean, what does one have? What exactly is a 2%er? Does a 2%er, are we just talking the Dave Shafees of the world? Are we talking, is Paul Lynn? We kind of kid Paul Lynn from time to time, whether we have to throw him out of 98 because he's getting into the 2. And there really is no hard and fast answer to that. The point is just that I suppose this is another way of just saying we are for everybody, not just for the stars.
Yeah, definitely. And I like what you're planning, doing your rankings and all that. I don't know if you follow my social media. I've been trying trying to do that on PulseoTV, but like PulseoTV's ranking on Puerto Rico of the arm wrestling community in Puerto Rico. But my focus is not on making events or tournaments. I try to cover everything I can and make content for the people to enjoy and learn and support arm wrestling. Maybe at some point I'll venture into making a tournament or an event, but I don't really focus on that. But you guys do, and you guys got everything covered. You got your own podcast, you got your tournaments, and if you do what you're planning to do, it would be like the total package. You know that?
Well, and what we are doing is I have copies of all of the bracket sheets from Winter Blast that we can see not only who won first, second, and third, but we can see who beat who in the A bracket, who beat who in the B bracket. And once we get enough of those, and we might have it for I think we have for one of the protest tournaments. I'm not sure, but once we get those, that is largely what we will, I think, at least to start, largely what we'll base our rankings on is how they have done in our various tournaments.
Yeah, and it's difficult to make rankings when people here in Puerto Rico don't like my rankings because they say I don't consider everyone, but I cannot put anyone on a ranking if they're not active. If they're not arm wrestling and they're not competing. Like right now, Joe is injured and Joe hasn't been active since last year. So I cannot say that Joe is the number one arm wrestler in Puerto Rico right now. Actually, we did a podcast with him and we had a conversation and we discussed this subject and he accepted that he wasn't the number one anymore because he's not active and he's injured. And we all agreed in saying that Miguel Rosas is the number one arm wrestler in Puerto Rico. Stuff like that. It's not easy. You gotta consider only the people that are arm wrestling, doing super matches at least, but you cannot consider I pin you in practice rankings,
Right. Well, I'm sure you're aware that on some of the rankings, they will put the date that the person last competed. And indeed, after a person has not competed for a length of time, they'll basically drop them off of it, which also tends to disturb some people. Of course, you'll never please everybody. Never.
Yeah. And let's talk about what's going to happen tomorrow. Is that it's going to be a really big day for arm wrestling. There's going to be events all over, right?
Everywhere. You have people competing that pretty much are 98%ers, whether they believe it or not, all the way up to the elite. And they're all getting a nice spotlight. So I feel like the introduction of what we do has somewhat influenced that concept, because I don't think anybody who never really earned their right to be in a super match would ever consider being on a super match before all of a sudden 98% started highlighting the little guy.
Yeah. Right now in Michigan State, it's tomorrow. That's where Todd Hudson is going to pull chance, right?
Yeah.
And on those Michigan State championships, there's going to be a Puerto Rican. And he started arm wrestling in New York, which you may know him. He's Richard Calero.
No, I don't know.
You don't know? Well,
No.
he started arm wrestling when he lived in New York. Then he moved to Puerto Rico and then moved back to the States. And I think he lives in Ohio now. I think. And he's going to be competing in the 198-pound class at Michigan States. I'm watching because Richard is good. Richard is good and strong, and he will do well.
Mm-hmm.
I look forward to seeing it. I am going to be paying attention. So because I actually Michigan's on my map for next year for me to go and compete at.
Okay, cool. So let's start with the Todd Hutchins Chance Cho match. How do you guys see that?
Chance is a great arm wrestler, amazing individual, really nice guy. I don't think there's any hope for him that maybe catching Todd Hutchins on the first round, possibly, but the whole match goes to Todd. Todd's side pressure is I just listened to a podcast earlier today, and it's to the T exactly how I think. Todd's got so much more years of conditioning in his joints than Chance even can dream of at this point in time. He's just not at that level. I don't think he may have strength, but he doesn't have that holding rigidity power, that old man power, as I like to call it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Dave. But there is something he said about that old man power, because I got someone like Steve Black. I don't know if you know him, Steve Metal Dog Black. I know. He comes to my practices from time to time, and he hasn't been all too active recently, but the last time he was at practice, it was like hitting a brick wall. And he had 5 months off the table, but like 30 years of experience, when I got a year and a half under my belt, and I'm doing all right in my own regard, and I can't even budge him. So
yeah,
I do think that, yes, I'm not comparing myself in any way or form to Chance's skill level and technical skill, because I think he's at a much higher echelon than I am at this point. But I don't think that he has it in the cards to beat Todd.
I'm going to defer to Dan on most of these. To be perfectly honest with you, I don't follow this well enough that I can really make an intelligent assessment. I will say, though, that I was at a practice / groups internal tournament last weekend over in New Jersey, and Marcio Barboza showed up. And people were amusing themselves by letting Marcio put his arm in the middle of the table and seeing if they could move him a quarter of an inch. And quite frankly, nobody could. It was, nobody was moving Marcio at all.
Well, I will say this. I love Chance. I really love Chance. He's a great guy. I even though I only talk to him and have a contact him through social network, I will say Chance is my friend. But Todd Hutchins was my very first podcast was with Todd Hutchins. I contacted him and he said yes instantly. And we did one, and it was, I don't know what happened. I didn't have any audio. And he said to me, we're going to do this again after the Leagueland match. And he was like kind of worried he was going to lose. And I say, no, you're going to win. And when you win, we're going to do this podcast. I'll say this. No, there's not that much arm wrestlers stronger than Todd. There's not like you could be better than Todd, but not really stronger than Todd. I would say the only American wrestler stronger than Todd, I would say Dave Chafee. I would say that because I've seen them pull in practice, and Dave can just bring him back from the bottom and pin him. So I would say that. But you don't have to be stronger than somebody to be better than them.
Chance has put on a good bit of weight. Also, I saw him at for the first time in the live at the IFA Worlds last September in Orlando, and I said to him, that I said I hadn't seen you since he'd been in Harrisburg some years earlier, and I said that was about 2 years and 100 pounds ago, and he laughed. But I said, oh, honestly, if it had not been for the the wild shirts and the Bermuda shorts, I might not have recognized him. I mean, he's certainly well known for those.
Yeah, he has changed. He's gained a lot of weight, but like to give him credit, he's being helped by Brandon Allen in his entire physical training. And I believe that Brandon Allen is the bridge between powerlifting and arm wrestling, because Brandon Allen knows his stuff, how to get strong, and he's just discovering how to translate that into arm wrestling. And he's been helping Chance. And I'm not saying in any way or form that Chance will beat Todd. I'm not saying that. I do believe Todd will win, but it won't be as easy as when Todd defeated like Corey West. I think that Chance is gonna put a better fight than Corey. And even if you follow Todd's YouTube channel, his plan for Chance is to top rolling. So that's saying something. If he's not willing to go inside with Chance, I don't know, maybe he's joking, but if he verbalized that, it means something. And I believe that Chance will put up a good fight, but at the end, Todd will prevail.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I would love to see Chance pull a win. I would love to see some new blood, you know, come out on top. As a new guy myself, I'm always rooting, and as somebody who's been kind of dubbed as a dark horse, and being successful, being new, and being a newer face on the field of battle at the table. I would love to see that. It would give me a lot more hope in my own regard. But I've been following Chance quite a bit lately, and both Chance and Todd, actually, and I gotta tell you, I think that Todd has the win, just because on the tirade that Todd is on right now. You know, he's just an absolute maniac at the table.
I don't know what he's doing. I really don't know what he's doing, but I've followed closely what he's doing in training, and he does the West Side conjugate system, and he's an engineer, so you know he's a smart guy, and he's using that method with his knowledge about engineering, and he's developing some training that some people don't understand, but apparently he's developing this kind of strength and force. Like it's not like I don't want to say the word strength, because it's the way he trains is he develops the force for point A to point B the way that he wants it to. And if you don't figure it out, you cannot hold them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. That's you know, as somebody who's been studying a lot of strap work lately, I've been studying actually Todd's strap work and how he operates. Like I go in slow motion to all of his videos that I watch, and because I want to learn what he's doing and what he's breaking down. I may not be an engineer for, you know, structural things and, you know, mechanics type of deal, but body mechanics is something I am very proficient at, and I can understand it when I watch it enough, and I can replicate it even. Or put my own twist to it, because like, okay, I can't do it the way he's doing it because that's just his body type. So how can I make it my way?
No, and Todd is not a big guy.
No, he's not.
You know?
He's not.
He's not 6'3" or 6'4". That he gives us hope.
It does give the little guy hope.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm like 5'11", 6 feet at most. I'm not that big. I feel like I'm small, really. I feel like I'm short, you know?
You feel much better about your physical stature standing next to me, because I'm only 5'8", man. So
well, I'm 5'11".
I'm a midget comparison to you.
I'm in that range.
And I won't.
But that's the thing. Like me, I believe like if you're taller than the table, like if your belly button is below the top of the table, you're in the wrong spot. The belly button has to be above the top of the table to really, you know, do some damage. And with me being a short guy and a thick guy, I cannot go really inside because I'm so big. I can't, you know, my belly and all the muscles and shit. I just gotta like kind of drag, you know. And being like Todd, he's thick and he's not that big. And actually, he pulls like I pull like him. I think it's a close match, you know, like the way we pull to the side.
Styles, yeah.
On that card, on that Michigan card, is there any other match that is getting your attention?
Not that's jumping out in my mind at this moment in time. I do know quite a few of our PA guys are going out there as well. I know we got Roger Learn, who's an up and comer. He's just been skyrocketing up the ranks a little bit of late. He's kicking ass. And then Chuck Bardo, who's been around for a while. He's just coming back to the table after an injury and surgery. And so he's gonna be back at this table too, which I'm really excited to see him. And I mean, he was cutting, from what I understand, to get down to a lighter.
He came in today at 99.8 kilo. So he made his 220 by about 7 ounces, whatever. So he's pulling 220 open and Bardo open and Masters. His wife is also pulling Kate.
Yes.
So yes, I would say it's just people that we know, such as Roger, such as Chuck. I get out to Ohio occasionally to go to tournaments there, so I know some of the people there. Kevin Palco from Ohio, very good in the 154. He was, with us at Winter Blast, and some others in that that lightweight category as well.
So let's move on to the King of the Table 3 event that is going around 3 p.m. tomorrow. We got the Larry Wheels versus Khaled match. We got Sarah versus Gabby, and we got what's the other one? Wagner Borlado versus Hermes left hand. That's gonna be that's what's gonna be interesting. And we got the Day Chafee versus Alex Cordecha as the main event. So we should start with I believe that Larry is gonna beat Khaled, but Khaled in the press conference said he didn't even train for that. And that's why I'm assessing that Larry will win.
I think that Khaled's wrist is just going to be, in hand size, is going to be too much for Larry. So because I think Larry has to train hard to untrain his brain as a power lifter and a strong man, whereas Khaled has nothing that he has to untrain.
Okay.
He naturally has what it takes. Well, watching him actually not to mirror too much what the Aussie arm wrestler and Ryan Bowen were saying yesterday at their predictions, but they hit the nail on the head when they said Khaled has natural arm wrestling capabilities. He just never really applied himself to it. He just never was. He's not an arm wrestler. He's not somebody who actually trains for something like this. But he just has the natural innate ability, which makes him lethal to somebody who has trained really hard, but has the strength, but doesn't have the lanes necessarily down pat. They don't have the basics or foundations, whereas the foundations come naturally with Khaled. So I think I think Larry might get one, maybe two, but the rest of them go to Khaled.
I will totally defer to Dan on that one. I don't know.
Well, well, if Larry doesn't get this one, guy did not train and you did train, and if you don't get it, even if he does get it, everybody's gonna say, "Oh, Khaled didn't train" and all that, so he's gonna be in a bad spot. He has to, like, 2 losses. He picked Brandon Allen thinking he was gonna beat him easily. And everybody knows that he's trying to pick a guy that he can beat. Now, if he loses again, even if he wins, everybody is gonna beat that on the back of their mind, like Larry is setting up to, get an easy match to get a win, and I don't think that's good for him. I don't think that's good for him. Like Dan said, he has to, if he wants to be an arm wrestler, he has to be an arm wrestler. He has to forget about everything else and be an arm wrestler.
I think for him, in my opinion, as somebody who's new to the sport as well as he is, if I want any level of credibility in creating events, I got to be at the table. I got to be at the table. I got to be somebody who knows the game as well as everybody I'm asking to arm wrestle for me if I ever run an event. So from a marketing perspective and from, building a brand like we are as a 98%, I think that him being on the card helps not only him, give him the encouragement to get better at arm wrestling, because he's a young guy. He's in his early 20s, I think. And so he's got a great future ahead of him.
25 or something.
Exactly. 10 years from now, I would say he has a lot more in his arsenal for the super heavies that, no one's going to be able to stop him or slow him down. He'll give people like Chance Shaw a run for his money at that stage.
Yeah.
But that being the case, I do think that what you're saying is right. It could, he could be picking people who he should be training for maybe every other King of the Table event he goes to, and not every one that he's on. I think that that's a bit much. I understand the concept of building the brand on one hand, but on the other hand, I think, giving someone else that limelight that really maybe deserves that, or has earned it on a level that beyond what he's doing. What he's doing for the sport is glorious, because you are bringing in the other strength sports into arm wrestling. They're generating more interest. You have other powerlifters now, other bodybuilders, CrossFit, all these other athletic strength sports are now looking, oh, whoa, what's going on over there with the arm wrestling table? And now people are getting more interested in it. So I love what he's doing, but I have somewhat of a pang of discomfort with him as well, because I feel like, what if he fizzles out and says, you know what, screw arm wrestling, I suck at it, I'm never going to do it again. I hope he never does that. I really hope, because I do think he does have a future with it. I hope he stays with it for the rest of his life, as long as he physically can. Yeah, I agree with you, and I believe Larry has to take away or take a break from super matches and do some tournaments. He doesn't have to be in every King of the Table event. He has to do some tournaments, get some experience, try different hands. The ready go experience is not like anything else, to be honest. People who I have started training with, like the group that I started with since day one, I have excelled past almost all of them, with the exception of these two other guys who have been hitting the gym and have a couple more years of experience, a little bit, stronger. But I'm more and more doing better than they are on a ready go, because I've been to, in a year and a half, 13 tournaments. So
that's a lot.
I haven't really left any rock unturned. I'm at a tournament every 6 weeks type of deal. And I've gotten that experience of how a lot of ready goes, whereas the other guys I've been training with, they don't. And so they don't have the proper setup technique. They don't have the proper fire off of the ready go. Not saying it by any means is my ready go in an example of perfection. I still have so much more to gain, so much more knowledge to pick up on in years to come. But I will say experience has proven to give me the edge over my training team.
Gosh, only 13 tournaments. I was in 24 last year. Of course, Dan wins more in the average tournament than I win in all 24, but I certainly do get around. That's what it says, getting around with the professor on my background there.
Yeah. You gotta get out there.
I would say he is probably beyond Devin Lara. Dave Schell is probably the most traveled, and maybe Michael Todd. David Schell is the most traveled American arm wrestler on American soil.
Well, and I have to tell you, when Dan was talking about how he got the Nightmare name, I went to a tournament some years back, and James Reed said, if you don't have a nickname, we're going to give you one. I thought, oh, for God's sakes, what is this, WWE or what? But we came up with Professor, and a teammate of mine, Dennis, the Hot Rod Kochel, said I should make it Professor Shell Shock. And I said, well, no, two reasons. Number one, it won't fit on the shirt. But I said, number two, shell shock is what they called PTSD after World War I. And if I call it shell shock, somebody is sure to get their panties in a bunch that I'm disrespecting the veterans or some such crap. And I said, that's another thing that has changed since I was at college a half a century ago that you could insult people without people getting their panties in a bunch about everything.
Yeah. Whatever you say, you gotta like look it up and see if
Oh.
everybody's okay.
I tell my students it was a great time to be a journalist at college because it was after the free speech movement, so it got rid of a lot of the in loco parentis limitations. But it was before everybody got their panties in a bunch about everything.
Yeah.
It actually mock people and get away with it. But
Yeah. Well, the next match I think we should talk about is the Gabby versus Sarah match, which I'm rooting for Gabby. I like Gabby, and I'm rooting for Gabby. And I think she has beaten Sarah twice before. I believe. But I think it's hard to say now because with all the PEDs going around and all that, and we all know. We don't have to say it. We all know.
Well, no.
So it's a challenge for Gabby, but she looked bigger than I haven't seen her before on the weigh-ins and in their interview. She looked bigger, so maybe she does has a chance. I really want Gabby to win.
So I actually admittedly don't know enough about Gabby. I mean, I know a little bit about Sarah only because of her being in Florida for a little bit. I've watched some of her training exercises back with Paul Italia, because actually back last summer I had a matchup with Paul Italia in my backyard, a little bit of a challenge match. Did a full sweep on him, and he had previously was training with Sarah, and so I kind of want to see who is this Sarah. And I did a little more research on her, and I was impressed. And I gotta say, she definitely has got a lot of power behind her. I know not all of it's 100% natural, but I would say she definitely does have a lot of power behind her. But she puts in the work associated with getting.
She works hard.
She works hard. She works her ass off. There's very few people in general that I've seen work as hard as her. And she's very dedicated,
Yeah.
So I would say it's going to be an interesting matchup. It's going to be definitely more than likely, because I mean, when you have that much experience, with Gabby, her experience might be able to trump Sarah's strength.
I do think bottom line is going to come to power. Whoever of them girls is stronger is gonna win. That's I believe that it's not gonna come to technique or anything. I do believe that they're gonna go for trap roll to slip and end up in the strap, and the strap doesn't lie. And I believe it will come down to strength. Pure power.
Well, I will say I do know Sarah's been working real hard with back pressure lately. So if it ends up with strength and who can drag them closer to their side of the table, then that makes it much more interesting than her previous matches, because she didn't have as much back pressure previously.
Yeah. And the last match that they had, Gabby beat her quite easily, but then it turned out that Sarah tore something or whatever. She was injured, and
Gotcha. Well,
and she had surgery and all that.
Whenever I hear that, when somebody lesser skilled or lesser individual in the sport, they're not a lesser individual. They spend less time in the sport rather, and they don't have as much experience as their opponent does, and then they end up winning. And then the more experienced puller says, "Well, I was injured." I kind of feel like that's a really poor excuse as to why you lost. You lost.
Yeah,
You lost. You put your elbow on the table despite being injured. It is what it is. Like, for instance, on my left at the second Winter Blast tournament, I had a condition where my arm had fluid buildup. It looked like I had elephantitis of the arm. I probably should not have arm wrestled, but I did anyway. And I actually did fairly well despite my hardships. I would have done better if I didn't have the issues I had dealing with, but it is what it is. I'm
it
not
what it
making
is.
any excuses. I'm happy with my success.
Look, the perfect sample is when Devin Larratt faced Dan Siplenkov left-handed. That's the perfect sample.
Yeah.
Devin has never talked about that he had surgery a couple of months before that match, and he accepted it and went on bull, and he took the loss, and he has never said he was injured or had surgery. That's the perfect sample. He went there, he put his elbow down, he lost, he took it, and that's it.
Exactly.
That's it.
I feel like that whenever the more established puller sits there and says something like that, they're taking away the win. So
yeah,
they're taking away the win, or even the less established, whatever it may be. You know, you agreed to this matchup. You know, don't take away somebody else's win. If you weren't healthy enough to be at your best, then you should not have been there.
Yeah.
Plain and simple.
Simple as that. Simple as that. And now, have you seen the practice pull that Wagner did with
Yes,
Hermes?
I saw that right hand. It was like, I was actually kind of surprised because I mean, Wagner's right hand is not nearly as lethal as his left, but
dude, Wagner is 315 pounds.
I know that he
Hermes
cut
is
through him.
285, 87 at best.
Yeah, he cut right through him. Like,
yeah, and they were like going back and forward, and he was like, they were like pressuring each other like little bit by little bit like that. But when Hermes wanted to stop, it stopped.
Yep.
And I said like, oh.
But it's not a good indicator, to be honest with you. I don't think it's a good indicator because of how the variance of someone's left to their right can be. My left and my right are two different creatures. I have two different pulling styles. You know, someone can take my right, but my right, I'm right hand dominant, but they can be left hand dominant and I'll take their left. You know, it's just a matter of style A, B, and C pulling, right? So I am very interested to see the match. I want Wagner to win, and then after that, I want to see Wagner versus Marcio Barbosa.
On left,
yeah.
But this is what I say about that. Like, you got elites in different countries, right? If you don't test, like when you go to another country and test yourself with other elites, you might find yourself there in a whole different ballpark.
Yep.
For example, when Leland won everything and he's the champion and he's the strongest arm wrestler in Australia, and comes to the States and pulls little old Todd Hutchins, and what happened? Like, you never know until you test, yourself. And maybe for what I've seen on that practice pull with the right hand, Hermes and Wagner are in two different levels. Like, very, very different levels.
There's also some. I want to speak to a post that actually I saw earlier. That Jamie Sheldon from NatFit, the owner and founder of NatFit, so peace to him. He said, that moment when people who you practice pull with, but you're only putting in 40% of your of your power in your practice pulls, but you demolish them in the tournament because the ready go is completely different, and you show them what it feels like to be a man. There is some merit to that. So Hermes, I know, doesn't have as much to say experience at the table, as many battles as Wagner has had.
Yeah,
so
Wagner has been world champion a couple of times, right?
What?
Wagner has been WAF world champion a couple of times, right?
Yeah, Wagner's a fairly well accomplished puller, and so he has earned his seat at the king of the table big time. Now, who's to say he's just putting on a show just to see where his styles are and say, hey, is his right just as good as his left, and just kind of feeling him out to do homework? Who's to say that? We don't know that. We won't know until tomorrow.
You're right. And what I've seen, Italian arm wrestling is like very aggressive. Like they don't like hold up anything. They just go all out and show you everything. Yeah, maybe Wagner was just taking it easy. you know. But I remember
there's guys who take me in practice every single time. They pin me to the pad, pin me to the pad, pin me to the pad. But when it comes to a tournament and I'm ready to go, I demolish them.
Yeah, because there's two different mindsets. It's like a switch. It's like a switch. That's why I told Todd Hutchins that you cannot brag about pinning anyone at practice. You cannot do that. Do not brag about going, on practice. Don't do that, because it's a whole different, like I remember when I used to arm wrestle competitively, I was usually I'm not that quick in practice and everything, but when I got to the table, I was thunder. Like I got nervous and scared and all that. When I said go bang, just quick, and that was something that only showed on the moment in practice, you know. And I believe that maybe I don't know, but from what I saw on that righty practice, you know, maybe Wagner's gonna have some problems, you know.
Go ahead, Dave.
I was just going to say the ones that I find especially annoying are the ones that talk about, they brag about who they beat at practice after that person had been pulling for 2 hours.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go. Or the ones that show up to practice like I practice, just to say something. I practice on Thursday, and then I want to some guy, and let's say San Germán wants to practice on Saturday, and he comes and pulls everybody who's tired and achy and sore, and he's bragging about beating everybody at practice, being sore from 2 days before.
Right.
Those are really, you know, bitches.
Mm-hmm.
So I go, Dave, he practices like 7 days a week. Like he literally eats, sleeps, and pulls and repeats. There is no that's part of his weekly, daily regimen. Whereas mine is more, I practice 2 times a week right now because I am actually conditioning my my arm to be okay with straps, because I'm doing 90% strap work because I'm preparing for the Jason Vale Memorial up in New York, May 21st. So if you're in New York, come through. May 21st, strap only tournament. I'm training just to pretty much wreck everybody, and I'm going against everyone who's as lighter than I am, all the way up to these guys I got who are about 300 pounds, and I'm training my arm to pretty much be comfortable being uncomfortable, and it is becoming insanely hard. But I'm doing it 2 times a week, so that as sore as I may be, in between, I'm just doing light work. I'm doing all recovery work, as if I'm preparing for a tournament in between each and every one of them, and I'm treating each practice like it's a tournament.
Yeah, what I do is I train for arm wrestling, specific things for arm wrestling, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I rest arm wrestling. I rest my arms on Wednesday and practice on Thursday, and rest Friday and Saturday for Sunday again. That's what I do, because like my elbows can't take it, because, you know, I still train like a power lifter, and I've been benching 3-4 times a week, you know. My elbows can take it. They're very achy and they hurt. So that's the split that I have, you know.
Yeah, I have been very fortunate that even at the very beginning, I have never gotten the muscle or tendon soreness for whatever reason. If I get a soreness, it's joints, but the bones, but wrist, maybe elbow, and as a result, I can. This is my main entertainment. I am now retired, except for doing taxes during tax season, and so I have the time to wander around. And I do hit practices all over the Northeast, and I tell people, there was a good friend that had talked once about how he had been to something like 8 practices in 10 days or something, and I said, "Oh, I can beat that basically." And so my record is 11 practices in 10 days in 5 states. That was in December of 2019. So hey, I could tell people, once you get a reputation for being crazy, you have to work to maintain it.
Yeah. Now let's talk about the main event of the whole weekend. That is Alex Cordecha versus Dave Chafee. And I will say this, in Dave, we trust. I believe that Dave will win and beat Alex. And this is the thing. Hear me out. Hear me out. Before Vitaly pulled back because of the war and Dave Chafee got in the match, before that moment, everybody in the, at least for what I read, everybody was saying that Alex Cordecha should be the #1 arm wrestler in the world right now because of Levon that is not active and all that. And let's admit it, Cordecha has done well. He's like couple of matches, you know. And to put Dave in the mix, if Dave wins, shit's gonna hit the fan and people is gonna be mad because there's an argument that Dave Chafee will be the #1 arm wrestler in the world.
I think that Dave is going to take it too. I think that he's going to be able to use Alex's height against him. Because Alex is tall as all hell. He's like as tall as Derek West, isn't he? He's like 6'8".
He's like 6'8", 6'9".
Yeah, he's stupidly tall. And Dave is like, I think 6 foot. 6'2" or something like that. So
6'2". Yeah.
6'2". So that's a pretty big variance. 6 inches is that's a huge variance in height right there. And you'd be able to, take advantage of. I mean, Dave's power, I think, is that much greater than anything that Alex has ever met. So I think it's a pretty much
point of reference, like Mr. Side Pressure, Todd Hutchins, practice with Dave. And Dave brings from here to here without any effort. And I mean, Todd Hutchins is as strong as any super heavyweight in the world right now.
Yeah,
even John Briseng said that he would love to see Todd pull Levon arm to arm in the strap, and he thinks that Todd can take Levon. John Briseng said that.
Wow.
And like I mean, Dave is a strong guy, and I do agree with you. Alex has never felt power like that.
I like that. Because he's also Dave's fast. That's the other thing. Dave is actually fairly quick. That's one of the things that a lot of people sleep on. He hasn't necessarily needed to use it, but when he does use it, it's scary.
Yeah, and they can top rope. Not many people do know that. They can top rope. I remember one of these finals events of the WAL that he pulled Nick Cena in some of the semifinals, and Nick gave him a hard time on the hook. And in the last match, Dave just went like bam, top rolling and beat him. And Nick was like, "What the fuck?" They could top roll,
Exactly.
He can top roll.
Yeah, I certainly hope Dave does. Once again, I really don't know his opponent well enough to really speak to that. Although I do want to tell you a story of a personal story involving Dave Chafee. That just to reinforce the fact that this is a sport where you can get to know the elite, and they will not treat you as though you're, nothing. I had been told I broke my arm early on. I did something stupid, and I was very new at it. This is a couple months in, broke my arm, and someone made the point to it was James Reed made the point to me that Dave Chafee had basically that he broke his arm as well early on, and that before he broke his arm, he basically was not all that great. Came back from the arm break and was far better. And I said, gee, I wonder, why? Was he just more motivated after that or whatever? And James said, well, I'll ask him for it. Well, instead of asking, he sent a note to Dave Chafee saying, you're going to be hearing from Dave Schell that has some questions for you. So I wrote by Facebook Messenger, I wrote a note to Dave, said, look, I broke my arm. And I related how I'd heard this and said what, essentially, asked him why, if this was true, and how, whether it was motivation or whatever. And I got a very lengthy, gracious response from him that unfortunately I don't have anymore because I got hacked about a year ago and had to throw out all my old Messenger and Facebook. but really a very gracious, detailed remark. It was like, who the hell am I? At that time, this was winter of 2017, 2018. And Dave at that time, as I recall, was considered probably number 2 in the world. After some Russian was ducking him or supposedly ducking him. And so, but here, this is somebody that is obviously among the elite. Who the hell am I? But yet this person gave me a very gracious, lengthy remark. And how many sports is that going to happen in?
Dude, I speak to Dave on Instagram. I write to him and he answers, and we have actually had conversations, you know. And he's a really nice guy. Todd Hutchins, Dave Chafee, they're really nice, really nice guys, really nice.
Yeah,
And even I asked Dave is a really quiet man, you know. He keeps to himself, and I asked him if he could be, you know, on my podcast, and he just simply say, I'm not a very big interview guy. And we had a long conversation talking about everything in life. He's a great guy. I love him. He's a great guy.
Yeah, I did finally then meet him personally sometime later at the Trojan Wars tournament that Bart Wood runs in Erie, Pennsylvania. And he was there, and was not the center of attraction in the set. Let me rephrase it, was not trying to be the center of attention. Everybody, you know, obviously, you know, knew who he was, and, you know, a lot of people were going up and wanting pictures taken, whatever. But he was sitting off to the side and not forcing himself to be the center of attention. But I thanked him at that time for his, you know, gracious remarks and whatever. And so, yeah, absolutely, a very, very pleasant person.
Yeah, and I would like to kind of close this podcast saying that Dave will win, and everything is gonna change in the arm wrestling scene.
Okay.
Having said that, I would like to thank you guys for being with me tonight, and I will ask all the followers on my social media and my subscribers that subscribe to your channel, the 98% channel. I will put a link below in the description. And for everybody else that is not subscribed to PulseoTV and watches this, please subscribe and like this video and watch our content. It's good content, and especially the local content of arm wrestling. And follow my series doing interviews and talking to different nations in Latin America about arm wrestling, that you would be surprised to see how organized they are and how they are doing their thing, and it's booming, especially in Costa Rica. So thank you, Dan. Thank you, David. I'm sorry Ryan couldn't be here, but maybe we can do this again, and Ryan could be on. If there anything you want to say before we close the podcast?
I just want to say thank you very much for having us. And if you ever do manage to get yourself into greater New York, I'd certainly be willing to spend the $35 worth of tolls to get myself over to Long Island to meet you in person.
Maybe, you may never know. We might even have a 98% tournament affiliated with PulseoTV down in Puerto Rico, possibly at some point. We might do a collab event.
Yeah, looking forward to that. And I believe you're coming to Puerto Rico soon, right, Dan?
That's the goal. Hopefully hopefully at some point this year I will be coming down, and you'll be one of the first to know.
Cool. And I'm what happened?
Yeah, you suddenly froze up and turned sideways. Don't ask me why. Well, it certainly wouldn't be a perfect podcast unless something went wrong.
Right.
Always modern electronics.
Don't you love technology?
I don't know there, Manolo. Forget to pay the power bill, or
Internet freeze up on it. Well, you know what? It's still recording.
Yeah.
Therefore, and it's still on. So he didn't make any of us the host.
well, and it was good talking to you. And if you don't manage to get things back into whatever, well, you can just conclude with you sitting sideways. Okay.
Oh, apparently I am the host now. All right. So I think we're done.
unless he comes back on.
Yeah, I'll give him a few minutes to see if he comes back on.